not a go-getter and anyone that's not doing the due diligence to make it to where they can get a scholarship. I'm not doing that. I'm just telling you that you have to account for the fact that there are racists in our society.
Right. I'm saying laws to accept based on nothing but the criteria scores.
Well,
race doesn't even go in on an application.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, I think you would still have. It's still not equal. It's still not equal because you cannot start from today moving forward.
Well,
there's still schools right now are being deprived of books. Schools right now, and mostly in the black communities, are being deprived of an equal education because lack of funding, because whatever the causes are. And that is not fair. That's not fair to a student to try to bang their heads against the wall, trying to get a job, and their teachers don't really care. And they don't really teach them as they need to.
I disagree there, and I'm not talking about black people. When I say that about teachers not caring, I think that's an economic issue you're referring to more than a race issue, and when you have a lower socioeconomic conditions,
and where are those,
whether that be white or black. Well, I believe if you check statistics nationwide, there's more white people on welfare than there are black people.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's a lot more poor white people than there are actually poor black people. So in those low economic conditions that we have throughout the country, I think a lot of times you have poorer grades. But are we going to really contribute all of that simply to teachers that don't care, or are we going to possibly say that possibly there's less parental involvement?
Well, like what I told you before, it's my responsibility. I don't look at the teacher to ensure that my kids are getting in school. Right. I do that.
Right.
I do that. So when you're talking about that,
so your children are going to be fine, correct? Because you're involved in their education.
Possibly, until you get to a point where they are at a juncture where they need to get a scholarship, or they need to get admitted to college. If you look,
and if the laws were in place, like I said, if the laws were in place that absolutely made people take based on scores, not color, then that's not racism.
But you're still going from today moving forward. You have to acknowledge.
And now the same amount of funding. I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Funding should be exact and equal in every school
from day one, from pre-K on up.
100%.
But it's not. But it's not.
And I don't have the facts in front of me, but I would definitely imagine that there are discrepancies throughout the country, and even at that, that's a shame. But the way I think they get away with that, they being politicians, is in the higher economic areas, you will have the parental involvement that will not tolerate less. And in a lot of the lower economic areas, the lack of parental involvement there, they're not going to come up and raise Cain to the school boards asking and demanding for more money, which they should. And, you know, if we could solve the problem here tonight...
Well, they shouldn't have to, for one. I agree with you that they, in a lot of cases, maybe they don't. But again, they shouldn't have to.
They should
be equal throughout the board.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't have. And now you're going back to the other thing, whereas they should bitch and moan. They should make sure it's done. But if it was equal,
I agree.
There shouldn't be a need for that.
They should not.
Just like if it was equal for the scholarship, there shouldn't be a need for 10%.
No. But
if there was equal in regards to employment, there shouldn't be a need for affirmative action. But there is.
Well, I disagree on the affirmative action, but yeah, there shouldn't be a need to have to demand more funds for your child's school. But unfortunately, I'm sure there are areas that actually provides more for certain areas, and that should never happen. But because we do live in a world where the government shouldn't be raising our kids, and we have to keep an eye on the government, it's up to the parents out there. And, you know, that's the part in society I think that we all have kind of not my sweet child type thing. As soon as we start holding ourselves a little more accountable for what we do and holding our children accountable for what they do, and being involved as parents, and no, this government's not perfect, and the areas where they're not, people should get out there and raise Cain and make sure that it is. I agree, equal funding should be across the boards. I would support a law for college admissions just based strictly on scores and from the top down, and if someone had even scores, I would support it being staggered, that it would have to mandate a white and a black and an Asian or whatever.
Well, let me tell you when I would support what you just said. I would support that law that you are proposing to be put into law if it starts from a pre-K kid going into class today until they graduate. And it has to be coupled with what you said, that all schools across the board are funded equally. If that happens, then there's no excuse.
Well, do you know why that couldn't happen?
Why?
Because the government allows the state level, federal government allows states to provide the education. States are responsible for providing education.
Well, make them a law.
All right.
Make that part of the law too. That's the only way though that I would support that law that you just made.
What I'm saying, and then the extras comes in from local school boards. So you're talking thousands of individual small governments that, in order to accomplish what you said, creates a larger government. More which that needs to, again, I don't think we can sit here and just solve equal across the board without the federal government taking over all of it. But that's a whole different issue.
Whoever you saying that has to enact that law to make it equal with grades across the board, have that same body make it law that all schools from a child who is 5 years old, going to pre-K now, until they are at the age 18, when they went through the same process as white, green, purple, I don't care what color you are, if you had the same funding across the board, then now let's enact that law. Let's say that everybody, and that's what it's fair.
I agree.
But you cannot go now and say, okay, I have all these unequal, unfair treatments of all of these people before, but now they're 18, they're senior level now, so let's now make a law that everybody has to make these kind of grades in order to get a scholarship.
Would you say that that's widespread, and you know that for a fact, and there's so many schools out there that's funded so unequally? Let me tell you why I think it's hard to figure out the funding mechanisms behind equal funding. Is you have one elementary school sitting over here with 1,000 children,